Hi, everyone. Today we're going to be presenting an agritourism for cut flower operations. My name is Lindsay Paschal. I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension's Harvest New York team as an agricultural business development marketing specialist. I also own Adirondack View Lavender, which is located in Geesville, New York. On my operation, I do you-pick lavender, you-pick sunflowers. We've done you-pick other cut flowers in the past. We do value-added workshops with our cut flowers, and I also do a lot of dried flowers that I don't offer to the public for you-pick. And we also do events on the property. We'll also be hearing in a little bit from Mary Rumble. She owns Copenhagen Farm, located in Copenhagen, New York. And she has a lavender farm, and she is one of my mentors when it's growing lavender. And she has you-pick lavender and different value-added workshops and host events on her property too. And we'll hear more from her in a little bit. So today's topics are going to be talking about you-pick, managing your you-pick cut flower operations, those value-added cut flower products and workshops, and marketing your cut flower operation. So when it comes down to, having an agritourism operation, it can be any size that you want. And I'm using a lot of pictures from my farm in this presentation. So I have a little farm store. I offer a variety of diverse products on the farm. We do, like I mentioned, the value-added workshops with you-pick. Some other things that people sometimes do is have flower bars of different options that people like to make arrangements. And I think it's always important to think of different ways of how to really use those agricultural products you're producing on the farm. Because that's what when it comes down to is our goal is to grow agricultural products and sell them. And the agritourism is just helping us basically increase our revenue on our farm, diversify our farm, bring public visibility to what we're doing on our cut flower farm. And also having a cut flower operation is also, for people to enjoy your property, and you just see people enjoying and give you like more of an inspiration, especially on those hard days when you're growing your flowers. So when starting your operation, I always suggest start small and grow over time. When it's your first year, you don't know what to really expect on what, how many people are going to show up, how much product you're going to have. So I do like to tell people is that first year, when it goes really well, take a step back and really think like, you can't just continue to just jump into this big. You need to slowly grow over time because you just don't know when you're going to hit to a point that you're at your maximum of, labor, product availability. So I'm always pushing, start small. Think about what your target audience is. Is it families? Is it kids focus? Is it just an adults focus? Or maybe it's all of that. And then what makes your operation different from others? And then also when you're starting out is like, do you have employees to help you out? Or are you doing this all on your own? I know when I first started out, it was just myself and my parents, and that's it. And it's kind of that's way my operation continues to work right now. Think about like when you have your cut flower operations, how unique you want your operation to be. So I only grow to the public for you-pick especially is the lavender and the sunflowers. I also bring in for my value-added workshops, different dried flowers that I grow specifically in my high tunnel to make those workshops like a little bit unique. And I'm always adding different flowers every year. But you could also be growing 20 different or 50 different types of different cut flowers if you wanted to, depending on your operation. Things to consider is like your layout for your farm. And I know over time I've learned what I like about my farm layout and what I don't like. Signage. So I like to mention to people is I have signage all across this red line here. that says no trespassing, no trespassing, no trespassing. Not everybody still listens to the no trespassing signs, but it's important to have clear signage, especially near where the road is, about where, you know, that identifies your operation, and then also different signage on the property that you'll need for like liability and stuff. Think about having a, you know, your driveway, where your parking lot's going to be, where your farm store is going to be located, how accessible like your restrooms are. So we're a very low impact farm. The porta potty is down right near the gate towards that private driveway part. Think about, you know, identifying where you're going to have your event space. So my event space is usually up in this area. And think about how handicap accessible your property might be and what you might be able to do to help maneuver your clients around the property if it's not as accessible. On my property, on a UPIC weekend, I think it's down to it. I have a gator available that I could put somebody in the gator and take them out to the UPIC field. I also would allow for somebody to drive their car right up into the lavender field. There's enough room and space available. I have the gate and keep out signs. I even have like a sign down here that says like no trespassing, please respect the signage. So think about, you know, really having that clear identifying signage and gates or ropes to rope people off. Really think about, if you're going to have kids area, is keeping the kids area. So I have the kids area for like our fairies in the lavender day is over here, where there's like balls and different games that they can play with. It's far from the parking lot, so I don't have to worry about something happening to a child. And also, when you're thinking about this is when you're starting an agritourism operation, is if zoning, talking to your local municipality office to make sure that they're okay with you setting up this operation, and what type of if they have any type of different regulations in the town of signage, hosting events, so you're not blindsided when you're putting together different programming for your farm. Visitors' expectation. So I've visited a lot of different agritourism operations in the United States and overseas. So I feel like visitor expectations are worldwide. Make sure it's clean, it's well maintained, you have a parking area, have consistent hours that are always up to date online. Think about, like I mentioned before, your signage, location of the signage, where your farm starts, any restricted area, and then like your operational hours. Make sure it's always a safe environment. It's a good idea to walk your field regularly to see if you any like wasp nests or woodchucks have put holes in the ground. And then thinking about how accessible that your property is to the public, especially for people with wheelchairs, parents with strollers. Put up any barriers that are, when it becomes unsafe, think about what you have for bathrooms. People want to be able to pay you. That's, I feel like, the most important part is you want to make money off of this. So making sure you have multiple forms of payment methods, taking credit cards, cash. Some people will still take checks. And then also thinking about a pet policy, and I'll kind of get into that in a couple of slides. And then if your operation might need some maps to show clear identification to the public of where things are. When you're thinking about setting up for UPIC varieties, is making sure that your UPIC, they're easy to cut varieties. You need to provide clear direction on how to cut those varieties. This can include signage. I've seen beautiful signage for cutting annual flowers or perennials for cut flowers. And then also think about, you might need to do one-on-one. So my policy in my field when it comes down to my UPIC lavender days is everybody, no matter if you've been here like the last 5 years, you need to be shown how to cut the lavender so that they don't cut into the woody part of the plant and kill my plants off over time. But when it comes down to like my UPIC sunflowers, I do that like self-service, and people can, my feeling is I don't have branching ones, they can cut it and it's done. The reason why you want to have clear signage or showing people one-on-one is, I've heard this from numerous operations, is people pull plants out of the ground and say, this is one stem, right? And then they've direct that whole opportunity to make money off that plant throughout the season. When doing new pick, think about offering like for sale vases, water. I always have like canister of water for people to fill up their vases that they purchase with me. And then, having scissors available. The policy on my farm is they have to use my scissors no matter what, because I don't want anything brought into the property. I just mentioned, put down a couple different varieties of thinking of easy to figure out how to cut. There's sunflowers, zinnias, gladiolas, dahlias, but there's a lot of different varieties out there. Another option too, when you're thinking about you pick varieties, is sometimes like the fillers aren't very appealing to the public to have to pay, $1 a stem or 50 cents or, so having some pre-cut fillers to, you can take so many fillers and add it to your bouquet. That's always a nice thing to offer to the public. Thinking about how you're going to monitor the field. And this is the one thing that sometimes stresses me out having the lavender farm is, how you're going to maneuver people around that field, which varieties are in season, which varieties aren't. So making sure you have clear signage of where people can pick. This may be including, like, I've done roping off certain areas so that people kind of work their way down around the lavender so that I can get it all cleaned up. So I can still have rows that look beautiful for like filled out. So if professional photographers want to come in, they can come into the field and they don't feel like they're, the fields aren't robust enough. This year I got into like flagging the fields for cut flowers. So I put like a little purple flag at the end, like these varieties you can start picking in. But I think the big thing is customers will be customers. So it's important to monitor the field. And then if you have employees, that they have the confidence to go up to somebody and say, you're cutting this incorrectly. You're sorry, but this section is not open to the public, and these are the reasons why. So making sure you tell your employees the reasons are, we're saving these rows so the photographers can come do their photo shoots in it, or the variety isn't ready yet, or it's past and we don't want people to, be unhappy with the flowers that they're that's been picked. Think about customers' relations. So making sure that if you're ever taking photos of customers in the field, like I've asked my customers that are picking in this photo, is this okay? Can I put this, use this for presentations and put it online? They're all happy with that. Think about what are you going to do if a customer is unhappy, and then how to be able to handle that situation. So if you have employees, making sure they're well trained and that they're the person that should be handling that situation, or should they be going to the owner? Customers will be customers. You'll have wonderful questions they ask about, and some questions they'll ask you on a day is like, really? You asked me that question, but you have to be able to respond, in a happy way. I've had customers over the years that have, ducked themselves right under the no trespassing, gone to other parts of the farms. It's just, you've got to have good relations with your customers. So you have to think about how you're going to be able to handle those situations. And I think our next workshop is actually on handling customers in difficult situations. If you're going to have employees, make sure you have your employees that are well trained on the different varieties of flowers that you're growing, how to be cutting these, and even like post information. So like if I have somebody who's working for me, I would teach them like how to be able to dry the lavender. What else can you do with the lavender? It can be used for culinary, and these are different ways that you can cook with it. Make sure you have distinction of who is an employee, who's not. It might be name tags, that might be shirt colors, like Lavender Farm, having your employees all wear purple shirts, like go find the girl in the field that has a purple shirt on. Or it might be a hat that has your logo on it. So making sure that people can find who the employee is on the farm. you know, have different tasks. You might need to have different tasks per employee. So you might have like one employee that's good with customer relations, another employee who is good at like harvesting the lavender in the field, but also showing the customers how to harvest it. You might need to have somebody who's just does your cash for the day on your U-Pick days. And then also have like scripted customer interaction. Ways for people to be able to handle customers is really important. And making sure that you have employees that are friendly and that really want to be there. And I personally think on a cut flower farm, like you're going to have happy employees too, because they want to be there. So I'm bringing up the food safety pet policy just because I think this is something to consider. Because with cut flowers, you can be growing cut flowers for culinary use. Lavender is one that can be used for culinary use, but there's a lot of different flowers that you might want to be, you want to offer that as like, you can be able to bake with these different flowers that are out there. So just having a clear policy on your farm, make sure you have signage that's posted, make sure that if you're having a pet policy, you know, it's located in your farm shop, it's located on your website, on social media post. So because it's important to have that information out to the public. Plus, I don't know how some people feel, but having people that don't take care of when an animal does something in the field, doesn't pick it up, and then you step in it, it's not a friendly environment for all your customers out there that might happen to. So think about if you're going to have a pet policy or not. I'm going to mention this in New York safety law is we have a New York Safety and Agricultural Tourism Act in New York State. There's a lot of information out there, and it can be a little bit overwhelming of determining what I should put into my signage, how am I protected. And this is something that we're going to continue to provide more information, but you can't use generic signage at all. It has to fit your farm. So on my signage, and I'm going to show you in this slide, it's specific to my farm, and mine says a person who observes or participates in an agricultural tourism activity on the property assumes the risk inherent in the agritourism activities. Risks may include land conditions, bees, weather, and the potential for you as a participant to act in a negligent way that may contribute to your own injury or death. You are assuming the risk of participating in the agritourism activity. And so what I did was looked at signage from other states and other operations around New York State, and I felt my risk were the bees when it came down to it. So if you had some of you might have a cut flower farm with animals, you'd want to include the animals in there into your signage. And the important part about having signage on your farm is making sure you're posting that warning signage in areas where people are going to be seeing it, you know, and observing in those activities. So like walking into your farm shop, when they get out of the car, when they're walking into your U-Pick area or your workshops. You can also, there's also distributing written information to visitors, directing them to the posted signage. Directional signage is also important. Taking, you know, reasonable care of walking through your farm and seeing if there's any risk, making sure you provide training to your employees. And then also posting information about a refund on your property. So this, like, my signage is located right when you enter into the U-Pick field. So you can see farther down in this picture, people are doing yoga in the lavender. So they are walking by that signage when they're walking into the lavender field for yoga. I always like to continue mentioning a lot with liability is it's important to have insurance in running an agritourism farm. So I always like to ask people, like, do you have insurance? Do you have any events that need to have a certain contract? How safe is your farm to visitors? Have you checked your property for potential accident locations? Do you have clear signage? think about, do you have like a DBA, and limited liability company, an LLC? So, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can protect yourself. Is your farm property and your private property all together, or are they separate? Make sure that you have accident report forms available. If there's an accident on the farm, especially you're giving people scissors, people will be people. We learn how to cut with scissors at a very young age, but still accidents happen. And then making sure you have contracts for events. And then if you're going to be doing any, I like to always tell people, if you're going to be adding anything to your farm, make sure you run those by your insurance company ahead of time. Like I ran into a situation, I wanted at one point to put up a playground. The insurance company I was working with wasn't okay with that. So making sure that you, whatever you're going to be doing, you don't move forward with it, and then you're not going to have insurance, or your insurance is going to get dropped. So always think about when you should talk to your insurance agent or broker. Make sure that you know clearly what is included in your policy. I mean, even having, I know in my insurance company wants glass, like making sure that's written to the policy, because that's a hazard. Make sure you know what's not included in the policy. Is it a home or commercial business policy? If you're some states, you have to completely have those separate, and some states are okay. And then making sure you know your insurance policy coverage dates, and fill out any paperwork that they send yearly, and make sure you're updated, and just stay in contact with your agent, your broker, on what's happening on your farm. So value-added cut flower products and workshops. I think this is a great way to make additional revenue on your farm. I've seen it on my farm is people become more engaged in the farm and what's happening when we start offering some of these different workshops, other than just doing the U-pick. Plus, I'm also in a situation is I can't, if it wasn't for like this year, our fresh lavender workshops, I wouldn't have gotten as much lavender out of the field. It could have potentially gone to waste. So this is a way to making sure if you have abundance of products, like either fresh flowers or flowers that you want to potentially dry, you can just add some more revenue stream to your farm. So different workshops ideas are dried flowers, fresh flower workshops, beauty products. So dried flowers, like we do a lavender brew making class. Next year, I think we're going to do some like lavender flower crown classes. Fresh flowers, we do fresh lavender wreaths. I mean, I don't do any beauty products classes for workshops, but I see that a lot of different farms is cut flower farms is they'll show people how to make like candles or soap, and be adding all these different farm-based products into their into these different candles and soaps. And then the other thing too is that people like sometimes they forget is like making essential oil. That's a big thing too, is so that's always you could always do an essential oil making class, and Mary actually does that on her farm. So just some considerations. So with the workshops ideas is you can always do, some people don't want people picking in their field just because they've had issues, like I said, pulling plants out of the ground, is doing a pre-cut flower bar and design class, educational programs like anywhere from growing. So I've seen people do lavender growing classes to lavender cooking classes, but you could do them on any different flower you can add into it. Wreath making classes with fresh and dried flowers, fresh and dried flower crowns. I've seen fresh making broom classes with a lot of different like woodsy material. Like I mentioned, we do a dried one. You do flower arrangement workshops, and like I mentioned before, those value-added workshops with soaps, candles. So there's a lot of different options. So from my experience, I'm just going to give you like a little brief overview of like the value-added workshops. Some of the pros and cons that I've experienced over the last couple of years of doing these is so making sure that you have like a location that you can do this, and I'll mention that a little bit more on the next slide. The amount of product needed for this workshop. So I can tell you, like, when we do a wreath making workshop, it's several lavender plants, and I know exactly how much product goes in it. 1,600 stems into a 14-inch wreath. And our customers count every single stem. It takes a while. We're moving them from a 2-hour to a 2.5-hour workshop, just because it takes people a long time to count all those stems out. The other thing is I've learned is you just don't want to give people like an unlimited amount of product and they just go for it. Not that people want to take or intentionally taking advantage of it, but people might take advantage if you give them too much product to work with and just tell them, like, do whatever. You need to give them clear directions. The time commitment it takes for doing these classes, and that's from organizing it, to marketing it, to getting the emails that I'm going to cancel. I need to cancel it. And then also, like, it might be anywhere from harvesting the fresh product to go in the workshop to you might, if you're doing dried stuff, like you're harvesting, drying it, you're packing the stuff away until next year's workshop. So it does take a bit of time commitment, I think, with doing value-added workshops. I know, like, I work full-time and have the farm, so I would sometimes take like half day off of work just to be able to harvest enough lavender, because we'd have, 3 wreath making workshops over the weekend. So it's big time commitment for sure. And then thinking about how you're going to organize that, and like I kind of mentioned, is like how you're going to market it, keeping up with like reminder notice to customers, answering the phone calls. That gets back to the time commitment when it gets down to it. Thinking about online payment and registration. This, I think, is really key to making things go smooth, is making sure that you have an online events platform versus having people call you up and ask a lot of questions. It's cut back completely. I've never done just make a phone call and register. It's always been online, and I only take payment through online. I don't usually take them over the phone. Having a strict cancellation policy is very important. Looking at other farms' cancellation policies has been very helpful. Like, we have a 72-hour cancellation policy, and that's so that I can refill the class, make sure that the instructor that comes in to run that class has enough people registered, make sure it's worthwhile for her. And also, I don't want to go pick lavender for 5 people for a wreath class and then them cancel, and then I have all this lavender that's not going to use, or I have to try to make them into wreaths quickly during that very limited amount of time. And also, I think too, it's really key that I don't have like listed in here, but is making sure you have a really good instructor that can really break down the instructions for people who are very crafty to people who have no crafty like experience at all. So that's really important, is having a good, reliable instructor. Workspace, the workshop spaces. So I think I've seen workshops offered through a variety of agritourism operations, anywhere from tents to pavilions to indoor spaces. So making something, you can make something work in very small spaces. I've even seen picnic tables with umbrellas, and people are doing wreath making classes underneath there. The big thing is consideration with weather and a backup plan. So for my space, we have a tent, a 20 by 40 tent that we do the workshops. It was going to be a little bit like wonky weather, I would say, at our first weekend this year. So we moved everything into the high tunnel, and it worked perfectly for one day, and the next day it got too hot and sunny. So thinking of ways that you can really be able to offer the different workshops is important. Other events that people like to do on cut flower farms are you pick bridal showers, baby showers, birthday parties, yoga, like a yoga and a bouquet, festivals. I do Fairies in the Lavender Festival. It's a Kids Day event. We probably do, a number of make your own fairy gardens. that day. But there's a lot of different festivals that people have out there. Think about different events that you can offer before and after you pick. And this is how like I try to maximize like our revenue on the U-Pick weekends, because we only offer our U-Pick on 4 weekends of the season. Is like we'll start off at 9 o'clock offering yoga in the lavender. Throughout the day, we'll offer like 2 to 3 different workshops, from wreath making to wand making to broom making. The U-Pick goes from 10 till 4, and then sometimes we'll have a workshop in the evening. So trying to make as much money as we can on the farm during a very limited amount of time. And then, or even like offering like bridal showers, baby showers, birthday parties, like after hours. I've done that too. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Things to consider if you're offering events for your cut flower agritourism business is make sure that you incorporate the farm into the events. So offering them like the option for like a special, maybe a U-Pick, maybe flower arranging workshop, wreath making workshop. Because it really, when it comes down to is the reason why we're doing agritourism is we're trying to sell our farm-based products. It's not, just offering an event space. It's really about offering that educational experience. Think about if you're going to have caterers on the property, are they going to be caterers that you approve of, or can people just bring anything they want in? It's important to have certain strict guidelines of how you're going to handle that. What types of shelters you're going to be offered, tent, pavilion, or if you have an indoor space. Does your event space have electricity? Or electricity is very important, I've found over the years. Make sure that you have restrooms for people, if there's a place for people to get water, and making sure that you have a clear contract and deposit, and clear like hours where people can start and finish, anywhere from setting up to making sure everything is picked up from the property is very important. And then I'm going to get just right into like some of the marketing stuff. So I always like to mention to people, it's really important to look at the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, promotion, and place. I have a marketing degree background, so this is to me always very important. So I think when it comes down to product, you're selling your cut flowers, you're either doing U-Pick or workshops. And I always like to ask people, how unique is that experience? And I think with cut flowers, it's pretty easy sell. And then I like to mention, like I mentioned before, is how much product you have available to sell. Pricing, how much you plan to charge? Does it cover the cost plus pay yourself? And then is the price reasonable for your market? And I have another slide that's going to talk about some like thoughts for pricing. Think about how you're going to promote your operation. Is it going to be, do you have a plan to advertise your products? Places to advertise are like websites, social media, website, word of mouth. And the place that you're going to be selling, especially for agritourism, is on your farm. But who will your customers be? Will they come to your operation when it gets down to it? So a little bit more on the marketing is, I think it's really important to have social media. I use Facebook and Instagram on days when I am leading up to workshops or U-Pick weekends and events days. Is I might be posting like twice a day. Now, since it's the low part of the season for me, I may post sometimes like once a week. Because there's not as much going on. It's just the farm shop is open right now. But making sure that you have a website. People ask me, anywhere on a website, how much should you be spending to have somebody develop a website? You can do it yourself. So that would cost you, as little as, 0. It's your time plus hosting and a domain name. So around maybe like $120, or you could get more established platform that could cost around $500. But then it just goes up from there based on if you're going to bring somebody to develop a website for you. Newspapers, I think newspapers and magazines are always looking for articles to write. So that's like kind of like free advertising for your operation. Newspapers are willing to pick up new operations within like the first year or two. Magazines might want to see you being established for like 3 to 5 years before they're willing to write a full article, because they want to make sure you've been established and you've been around for a little bit of time. TV is always important too. If you can get the television station to come out and during your workshops or your pick weekends to see what's happening and do a nice a TV event for you. So think about some local outlets. So in my area, I have a great promotional program that's part of Cornell Cooperative Extension of Essex County. So in New York State, if you're part of, your local extension office may be having some type of promotional program for the farms. So we have Adirondack Harvest that does a great job with promoting all the farms in the area. So we're like my farm's connected into that program. Think about your TPA, your tourism promotional office that's located in your area. They will help, can help you with doing some advertising locally in the area, and usually have an events form that you can fill out online. And then look at local email events calendars that you might have in the area. Like we have the J Community News, which does a great job promoting the different activities happening in the area. Make sure that you have clear dates on everything of when things are going to be offered, from your website to your social media. And I will say from experience, if you can send like the newspaper, magazine, TV information about your farm ahead of time when you're looking to get some help with promotion, and also being able to review any type of articles that come out, just to make sure there's no mistakes or miscommunications. So thinking about pricing when it comes down to your farm is people price anywhere from per stem, per bunch, mason jar. So thinking about how you want to price your product and making it suitable pricing for your customer base. So I actually have spent time asking my customers, how much are you willing to pay for a bouquet of flower? How much are you willing to pay for a wreath making class? And I put that in consideration. Sometimes it's definitely not appropriate what they're saying. It's way too low. But it's important to put everybody's opinion in your thought process. But it's also important to look at what it really took for you to grow that crop, your overall cost to produce it, and your time. So I am going to turn it over to Mary next. I have a slide for her. And I'm going to have Mary do an introduction, and she's going to talk a little bit about kind of the stuff I was talking about already.
Okay. Should I put my video thing on or just?
Sure. It's up to you. You can put the video on or not. So
There you go. Hi, my name is Mary Rumble. My husband and I, DeVere, own Hoppenhagen Farm. We decided to go into farming after we retired from our jobs, our regular jobs, our careers in 2015. And so we didn't want to be bored, so we set up some hops. And we really enjoyed the hops at the time. Grapes were a big thing. We wanted to be a little bit different, so we went with the hops. And then after a couple years, I decided to start growing lavender because I found that lavender and hops had a lot of similar properties. And so from then, we just have kept going in different directions. So after we did the hops, we went to the lavender, and then we went to let's see, a small shop where I got into essential oils, and then 20C Kitchen. And then to get the 20C Kitchen, we decided to add a tea room to help compensate for the pay for the tea room. And I was able to do that with our kitchen because I do sell tea products, and that has helped with that. And when the tea parties, that has turned into a great value added because I get groups of 10 or more people, and I do English afternoon tea parties. And then after that, we do a tour of the farm. And then we added our distillery. And then we continued so we can make our own lavender essential oil. And then we just continue to add different things to compensate for like the lulls in time. So we added like wine slushies, which we do sell lavender wine, which we partnered with a local winery to make the wine with our lavender, and we sell it in our shop. Um, and then we've added this year soft ice cream, but of course it's lavender soft ice cream. And let's see. So we sell our biggest products that we sell are our bundles of dried lavender. And in the one picture you can see we initiate our drying process in our barn by hanging the bundles of lavender after they've been harvested. And then we continue the drying process in a hop dryer that we had used for hops, but we found that we could dry our lavender in there. And again, to kind of avoid it's got temperature control, humidity control, or actually a dehumidifier, and we could quickly dry it and not be worried about mold and like that. So let's see. We also offer for our value added, we work a lot with tours. Like I've done school tours with our local school. I've had Fort Drum, I've had different people contact us, and I actually do free tours for them when they come to the farm. Photographers during the blooming season, which for us, that's usually right around 3 weeks, the end of June into July, leading up to our festival. Also, we do a Christmas special again to help with the lull time of our major blooming time. And we offer Santa Claus in our tea room, in which literally there is a story about Santa Claus and lavender. Um, let's see, as far as our festival is always the second weekend in July because that's when we guesstimate that's when our lavender is going to be ready for you cut. And this year we had over 130 craft vendors, food trucks, and parking, which is always an issue because this is on our home. This is our house and our farm are connected, which is another issue that I noticed that Lindsay had brought up during the presentation. And I'll go back to that. So we have 13 acres. So for the festival, parking is in our hayfield. So that's taking care of that. As far as I'm going to jump into that part right there, where it is our house and our farm. So we don't have a chance to rope off areas. When people are visiting the farm, not during the festival time, they come up our driveway, our personal driveway, and pass our house and then our shop, as you can see in the picture in the left, is at the end of our driveway next to our barn and our garage. And that is a little bit of an issue during our planning. We had no idea that we would become this large. And so the pre planning, as she said, I worry I have grandchildren. So I'm very conscious of our road and putting up signs that there's kids that play. And insurance, I'm going to jump to that right there because it is our home farm in our home house, we have separate insurance policies for all of that. Our home is separate from our business, is separate from our farm. So that's all covered it. And she did cover that in that slide. Let's see. For managing UCUT, I'm going to go back to that. So we also, when people come, I put up a sign right in front of my shop and say, this before entering the fields, because people have done that, that you must report to the shop. And at the shop is when I give them a basket, I give them scissors, I have clear instructions on how to cut the plant, how to cut their flowers or the lavender. I also have visuals because I find some people need that visual look to get an idea. So I say it's like you won't need to put your vendor or your bundle in a mason jar, and so that's like a size, and I give them a cap. And you get some people that, have two cap sizes and say, so is this bundle okay? And then I get some people that have, 4 or 5 stems and say, is this the size you were thinking? Even though I gave them the metal cap to show the bundle size and the scissors. and I have a picture of a lavender plant, and I explicitly stress not to cut into the woody area. And that does, it's a little bit different with the English lavender, which has the shorter stems, and then our French lavender that has the longer stems. But again, that's a key thing. And training employees as far as helping people with questions during cut and people visiting the farm. My grandson's 5 years old, and he saw someone with some little kids, and so he, even at his age, he's looking at the family and kind of watching, and the kids were running in the lavender. And as brave as he is, he said to the parents, "You must be very careful of the plants, and the children can't run through the plants because it will break them and they will die." So, again, it's you, like Lindsay had said in her slides, you need to train everyone about protecting, your plants and your property. I'm not sure marketing. Our big thing is Facebook. Our festival, we have signs all over Watertown, stretching to Syracuse, north of like to Clayton, Alex Bay. One of the things I also sell out of my shop, and this is my beginning of my busy time for apple orchards. I make candles, and we sell our dried bundles to apple orchards around different places in the state. So he does a lot of cold calling, and by that I mean he'll call up different places and say, would like to offer, these products to you. We could come visit you and show you what they are to see if you're interested. And I also do a lot of private labeling for them, and that's a big thing that opens it up also. We also bought property. We are located on a side street in Copenhagen, and so it's not on the main thoroughfare. So we actually bought a piece of property on Route 12 right here in Copenhagen and put a large sign saying, Copenhagen Farm, Lavender Farm, 10218 Washington Street, Copenhagen. We had to buy a license that we have to renew every year because that sign is not on our private property. Even though it is our private property, it's not where the business is located. So we do have to pay for that through New York State. I do not do online orders for products from our shop, um, mainly because of shipping. It's so hard to determine how much it's going to be. And I'm going back and forth to the post office and things like that. So we don't do online ordering, even though that is a great avenue to do. But you have to really think about, how much you're going to charge for shipping before you actually, offer your products for sale. Did I miss anything, Lindsay? Is there some other things that you might have added? I mean, you covered so much.
I think that's perfect, Mary. So thank you very much. And I
You're
will
welcome.
stop the recording.